Hello team, welcome to another ATP Geopolitics video with myself, Jonathan M.S. Pierce. This is a Ukraine war news update, the first part thereof for the 14th of November 2025. Just a short note before I get on with the news. 3 days of me being away, my output will be inconsistent, but I should be getting you at least this video every day. Last night was a very significant night. Kiev was hit badly by the Russians, but I don't think it was as strategically successful as Ukraine's wide-scale hits, and there's going to be a lot more information emerging, but we know at least Novorossiysk, the Black Sea port, was shellacked. There were 3 major hits on that port. We'll talk about that in a wee while, and I think strikes across Crimea and probably elsewhere, but we are yet to get the full gamut of information coming out. But yeah, so a really significant night of strikes. We'll get to that in a second. If you haven't already, please like, subscribe, and share. Always very useful. Thank you for those of you who have been long-term supporters of the channel. You are all legends, one and all. Okay, let's get to the information. We're going to start with the Ukrainian general staff figures for the Russian losses for the day before. All the usual caveats apply, of course. You can find them linked in the description below. We have a day of over 1,000 troops, 1,000 personnel lost yesterday. 1,040 is the number. So that's fairly decent for, well, very good for the Ukrainians. 2 armored combat vehicles and no tanks. So significant downtick in those categories. We have had lower numbers of these over the course of the last week due to bad weather, particularly fog. It's not that it's been crazy windy, but fog has played a part. 35 artillery systems, though, taken out yesterday. So my guess is that's somewhat cleared. But the Russians were rushing in their vehicles and unarmored vehicles and personnel and support into places like Pokrovsk while the fog was there. 95 vehicles and fuel tanks added to the list is a significant number in that category. So I think that is good news for the Ukrainians. It shows I think they're back onto taking out Russian kit. And I think the lack of tanks and armored personnel vehicles and IFVs and whatnot is a reflection of them not using as many. They just do not have the BMPs, the BTRs, the BNDs, and the tanks that they once did. And I think it's also not, it is also useful that they use unarmored vehicles to a point, like they're more maneuverable. There are more of them, as in, you know, rather than 20 people on top of an infantry fighting vehicle, you've got 20 motorbikes that much harder hit. You need 20 munitions, right? So there are advantages for using unarmored vehicles, but I think it is suboptimal in many contexts. And yeah, it's a sign of, I think, where the Russians are at the moment. Now, this is a problem that I've talked about heaps recently. I'm a little bit obsessed with this in the moment. This is the asymmetry that exists whereby Russia can prolong the war without collapsing because they can draw from people from all around the world. And I think this is a really, really important point. That's why I put it first. Kenya has confirmed that more than 200 of its citizens have been recruited to fight for Russia in Ukraine, many through deceptive promises of high-paying support jobs. Authorities say networks are still active. Now, one caveat, this is probably throughout the war. So 200 over the course of 4 years, okay. But I don't know, it might be top-heavy to recent times. Also, this is what Kenya has confirmed. So my guess is the problem will be way worse than 200 citizens. I would assume that there is probably a bunch more than that. I don't know to what degree. Is it double? Is it 400? Is it 210? Point is that this is one country in the world. Multiply that by potentially, I don't know how many countries would be contributing to Russia's war project, but we know India, Sri Lanka, Cape Verde Islands, even, my goodness, Cuba, Colombia, there are Iraq, Libya, Syria. There are all sorts of countries that have been providing troops for Russia. So multiply that number across all those other countries, and you have a significant number of people that are fighting or have fought and have died for Russia, thus prolonging the war. Those are all people that Ukraine, I'm going to talk in real non-human terms, in very like numbers terms now, So forgive me for, lacking humanity here, but these are all humans that the Ukrainians have to kill in order to, get back to Russia just providing its own troops. All of the North Koreans, goodness me, I haven't even talked about the North Koreans, and they have given at least, I would say now we're talking 20,000 troops. But then remember, I often talk in terms of any workers that go into Russia are functionally soldiers. So if they send 25,000 workers into Yelabuga, that is 25,000 people that Russia doesn't have to provide to build shaheds in Yelabuga, and it's 25,000 people that they can then mobilize to put into the army. And so, it might not be one to one, but the idea is that all of these human resources that Russia is able to draw from abroad are either soldiers or allows them to commit more soldiers to the front. This is a really big challenge for Ukraine. And I think that one nugget of news is incredibly indicative. Okay, Pokrovsk, we all know, difficult. The green here shows Ukrainian gains north of Pokrovsk. So this is where they cleared out the bunny ears. But all this red area is where the Russians have been gaining over a recent time. So, and it's down here. Yeah, I keep talking about Heliopolis. This is that town or city that, we were often worrying about from the south. You've got these great dug in positions to the south of there. It's been very positional, not a lot of movement. And actually, Ukraine has seen the Russians break through from the east. And this is a big problem. Now there's talk about, hey, high ground, low ground, this and that, and not to worry. And there's talk about Pokrovsk as well being a kind of sort of a trap for the Russians in drawing the Russians in, and then it becomes a bit of a kill zone as the Ukrainians have higher ground to the north and northwest and whatnot is one claim. But I don't know. I'm particularly worried about what's going on in Zaporizhia around Heliopolis. Ukraine just won a major battle north of Pokrovsk, clearing 40 square kilometers from a Russian salient. The first Azov Corps freed up hundreds of troops, but Pokrovsk itself is lost, says Euromaidan Press. And yeah, I don't contest that is lost. I mean, as long as they're fighting on the outskirts or in the trenches just by it, and as long as they don't have huge numbers of troops surrounded in Myrnograd, it's not too much of a problem. But yeah, so that's again where we're at. This is Myrnograd. This is what it looks like. This is what liberation looks like in Russia or in Ukraine for cities and towns that have been stolen by Russia, scare quotes, liberated. That is what liberation looks like. Massive destruction and death. Be under no illusions as to what Russia is doing. They don't give one hoot about Ukrainian people. Aerial view of Myrnograd devastated by ongoing Russian strikes. Pokrovsk and nearby Myrnograd in Donetsk Oblast remain the focal point of Russia's heaviest ground assaults, as Russian forces have been attempting to encircle and seize both cities for months. It's depressing, isn't it? I mean, look at that aerial shot there. Just massive destruction. And yeah, it's a sort of Bakhmut style imagery. Now, Euromaidan Press writes, Russian forces are disintegrating in Pokrovsk. So this is, I think, your, I don't know, hopey-copey sort of approach. This is, Euromaidan Press takes videos from reporting from Ukraine, who often on a daily basis cherry pick, good news bits of information, nuggets, and then turn them into videos, or aren't always fully representative of what's going on the whole of the front line. And maybe this could be seen as a more positive outlook of what's going on in Pokrovsk. Nonetheless, here it is. Russian forces are disintegrating in Pokrovsk as soldiers systematically refuse combat orders. Videos from the front show officers recording troops who say they'd rather face prison than enter the town, which has been synonymous with certain death. The battle has evolved into small unit shadow warfare by groups of 2 or 3 soldiers. Drone dominance prevents any large-scale movement. Main forces from both sides remain 10 kilometers outside town limits, unable to cross open ground without immediate detection and destruction, of course. Hence the fog being so absolutely important for both sides, really, to throw their troops and rotate and get their injured out. Throw troops in, get injured out. For Russia, this creates an unsustainable dynamic. Their units, filled with unwilling conscripts and penal soldiers, can't function in combat that rewards skill and awareness over numbers. Officers strip refusing soldiers of pay and transfer them to penal battalions, which Russian command then sacrifices as cannon fodder to reveal Ukrainian positions. This is very sort of similar to Bakhmut, actually, where they'd send in your convicts, your storm troopers, your Z stormtroopers. They were basically used as cannon fodder to get wiped out. And, you know, you'd send 20 of these penal soldiers in, the convicts in. You see where they get shot, from. You're like, right, that's where the Ukrainian positions are. So you kind of smoke out the Ukrainian positions by sacrificing these sorts of soldiers. Ukraine's defenders operate with precision. Drone-guided patrols detect infiltrators, fix them in place, eliminate them, and withdraw before Russian drones can respond. The strategic goal isn't holding every block, but keeping Russian control south of the railway line, maintaining the logistics corridor that allows Pokrovsk to resist or conduct organized withdrawal if needed. So that is a claim. That is a claim about what's going on in Pokrovsk to some degree. Here we have this is another claim. Sorry, I thought we were on to the foggy elimination, but this is a foggy elimination of sorts. So this is the SSO strikes in the Pokrovsk battle. Special forces destroyed a Russian 51st Army troop concentration in Zatishok, which is a little bit north of Pokrovsk, Donetsk region. Drones hit a building housing 1st and 9th Assault Brigade personnel amid bad weather. So this is, even though there is fog and a lack of precise reconnaissance, the Ukrainians were still able to hit a couple of troop concentrations there. So that's significant. They are still hitting the Russians. In fact, I was going to go and talk about an aircraft, but actually let's go on because I think it's more meaningful to carry on in Pokrovsk. So this is a video. A few days ago, there was a very widely shared video of Russians in all sorts of dilapidated cars, trucks, and bikes making their way into Pokrovsk under the cover of the blanket of low cloud. And this was the video. If you remember, my video was titled "Charge of the Light Brigade." As this, you had a bunch of motorbikes and unarmored vehicles flying into Pokrovsk. Then there were claims that it was taken out, and there were some complaints from the Russians even. It was taken out because they so quickly uploaded this onto social media that the Ukrainians knew that they were coming. I mean, I find that stretches plausibility a little bit, because surely this would only take like an hour to get from A to B tops, and then but I don't know, maybe not. And would that give enough time, filming something, uploading it, getting on your bikes, driving on, and then that causes the Ukrainians being able to hit them? I don't know if those things can definitely be linked. But anyway, a few days ago, there was a widely shared video of Russians in all sorts of dilapidated cars, trucks, and bikes making their way into Pokrovsk under the cover of a blanket of low cloud. Ukraine's now responded, saying almost all of these items were eliminated, though the video can't be verified. I mean, it certainly looks like the time and place here. There is fog in some of this video, so I don't know. Maybe. I mean, it certainly looks like a lot of that sort of equipment, a lot of motorbikes and unarmored vehicles were taken out there. Russian propagandist and Z blogger Arutyunov said that the Russian soldiers from the viral video showing a Russian armed forces convoy entering Pokrovsk have already been eliminated. So the Russians are saying this themselves. According to him, this happened because the video was leaked online by a Russian war correspondent. Yeah, so that's a Russian claim there. Here, some Russian Vorenkos are shouting that thanks to the publication of a video of the attempted entry of the occupiers' column into Pokrovsk, this attempt was neutralized and the column was dismantled. As someone says, here, have we all seen the famous video of the entrance to Pokrovsk? And be patient to the point, because of that idiot who filmed this and leaked it online today on this site, Mount 200 and the burned technology. In other words, 200 being dead, and the burn technology being equipment, obviously. Nowadays, it's a war of drones, right? Artillery was cancelled. Is that what popular bloggers bequeathed? MLRS to the museum, mortars into the ravine, AGS, exclamation mark, but at least everyone got hyped. I can't quite make full head and tails of that, but the idea is, look at us talking about this online. Everyone's hyping these videos, and it's ended in the death and destruction of people and equipment. So that is that. But nonetheless, the Russians can still manage to take these losses and still make gains. Of course, that's the way they operate. Now, news came out yesterday that either a Su-27 or a Su-30 SM had crashed 150 kilometers, I think, northeast of St. Petersburg. So here it is up here. You got St. Petersburg down this area. So a crash had definitely happened. Lots of channels were reporting this crash in the forest near Petrozadovsk, sorry, in the Republic of Karelia. Currently Russia, it used to be Finland. The incident happened near the regional airport. Crew information status is not yet available. Actually, we now hear that both crew died in that crash. Igor Sushko says $60 million Su-27, Su-30 fighter jet crash near Petrodazadovsk, 180 miles northeast of St. Petersburg. Both pilots dead, so a little bit further than I said. So here we have another source. Su-30 SM crash in Karelia. There's no information about the crew. Ground search and rescue team was dispatched to the crash site. Rescue team flew UTP SMU or PS. So then later said the crew died. So yeah, the crew died. That is very useful for the Ukrainian armed forces, for the Ukrainians, given that the Russians lose both an aircraft and what one would presume was an experienced crew. And it's that last bit that can really have an effect on Russia's capabilities going forward. Okay, Ukrainian soldiers said, and yesterday, I think it was yesterday, that I reported there were two air defense systems on the general staff loss list like this. I think it was yesterday. And then just after that, Ukrainian soldiers said that over the last 24 hours, AFU destroyed a Russian OSA and a Buk M3 air defense system, both in the south of Ukraine, so maybe the Zaporizhia area taken out by the Ukrainians there. Now, border guards from Kharkiv detachment have hit 4 vehicles, 2 shelters, 2 antennas, a loitering drone, and enemy personnel with FPV drones on the southern front of Slobozhenskina. So this is either in the Kharkiv or possibly in the Sumy to Kursk area. I think the claim is Kharkiv, maybe. But anyway, what I find interesting about this, and yeah, all normal stuff like vehicles getting blown up and whatnot. What I find interesting is the ability that these guys have to fly inside forests and blow things up and sort of kind of through trees. But then I have to catch myself and say, remember how many of these videos don't get published because they fail. So they're not going to be publishing the ones where they fail. So I'm sure there are many drones that are recorded going into forests and woods, and then they get caught in a bit of undergrowth or a branch or whatever, and then it doesn't get through. So when you see them sort of flying through tree areas like this, and you think, oh, that's clever, they're doing a good job of flying there. Actually, no, that might be one of 5 drones that was sent, and the other 4 got caught in the branches. Also worth noting the amount of unarmored cars that the Russians are using at their little dugout spaces, hideouts, and whatnot. So it is very clear that they're down on equipment, I think, military equipment. Right, the Signum drone battalion here has released a video showing Russian Molniya kamikaze drones. These are very cheap and cheerful, but very effective drones that they have been using for some time. These are being shot down or taken out here by interceptor drones in the Liman area. They say 34 drones were intercepted. I mean, this video, I think, probably shows them all. 34 drones intercepted in just a few days. So then multiply those Molniya drones across the entirety of the front line and over the course of, say, a week, and you have got hundreds and hundreds of these sorts of drones being used. The Russians do have some serious drone capabilities. I mean, by capabilities, I'm not saying this is an amazing drone, but it is simple and effective enough to be an absolute nuisance. Is not doing justice to like the death and destruction that these things can cause. These are plywood, sort of, as I say, cheap. They're more difficult to detect because they're not, big old metal things. They are, they have enough explosive capacity. Actually, we've seen it being used as motherships as well previously, which is interesting. There's a fixed wing drone to be used like that. Okay, now we're going to move on to sort of distance strikes, and we will start with what Russia has done in Ukraine. Still, information and footage emerging. So we're not 100%, of course, we never are certain of what took place last night. But overnight, Russia did launch a massive air attack on Ukraine, one we've been waiting for. They've been down in these sort of hundreds, either below 100 or between 100 and 150 sort of drones on a nightly basis, you know that that's gearing towards a big one. And the question is this big one, and has the last week been, well, I guess we can have a little look at remember, this is only intercepted drones though, and it doesn't give us a full sense of how many drones are have been sent in total. And given that Ukraine has been struggling with interception, that could be fairly important. But if we go to the drone, actually no, let's go to the data. I think, yeah, well, interesting. No, let's go back to that. You can see just above here that it's tailed off a bit. You see, so the steepness of the gradient here, the blue is a total number of drones that have been, in this case, intercepted, but it is tailed off, which means that over the last week or so, you've got some white gaps here. There have been lower numbers of drones, I think, sent. That might have, the whole point of me bringing this up is that I've been wondering whether there has been an effect on the number of drones that have been sent of that depot that was hit, where you had 1,500 warheads and 1,000 drones that were blown up or potentially blown up. We don't know how many were successfully blown up. So the question is, has that had an effect on the Russians firing drones? Now, what's a useful way of looking at this is the deepness of the red. Okay, so this is your drone interception rates. I'm just going randomly, I've gone back to, I don't know, what date are we? 5th of October, right? Beginning of October. We've got, just as a kind of example, we've got 450, 320, 363, 338, 401, 328, 254, 219, 244, 232, 390, 389, 416, 588, 498, 444, 398, 235. So in that period, there wasn't a single day of interceptions that were below 219. 219 was the lowest, right? And we did then eventually have a 160 here and then up to 626 the next day. So extraordinary numbers where, like for this week, 390, 389, 416, 588, 498, 444, 398. You didn't have, for that 7 days, that was a week. For that 7 days, you didn't have anything under 390. Right? Then I'm going to forward wind to the last week. And I think you have had an effect on the Russian capacity to send drones, because we have now got light pink days here. So we just look at, broadly since that place exploded. So 398, and I think it exploded probably somewhere around here. 172, 248, 250, 440, pretty big one. 57, 217, 162, 141, then 442. Point being that is a different I think, set of results than what we saw at the beginning of October. So I genuinely think the Russians have been hit with that depot being taken out. Remember, these also include all the drones and reconnaissance drones as well, sent during the daytime. So it's not these aren't just overnight Shahed drones. So these green infographics include, when you look at the drones, so 442 was sent last night. Last night was a big night. It cuts off halfway through, so you get a lot of last nights on the night after. But a lot of that will also be what took place during the day yesterday as well. And there was, for example, Sumy was attacked, and there will be reconnaissance drones. I don't think they'll include things like the Molnia, but they will include things like the Zala Supercams, Lancets, and so on and so forth. So, we need to be careful of how we understand all of these numbers. But I think, just generally speaking, we are seeing fewer drones at the moment. It's still horrendous. I mean, last night was horrendous, right, for the Ukrainians. But I think there has been an effect in taking out that depot. Overnight, Russia launched a massive air attack, firing 430 drones and 18 missiles. Most were aimed at Kiev. The barrage included Caliber cruise missiles, Kh-47, M2 Kinzhal hypersonic air ballistic missiles. These are the ones that were that are dropped by the air launched. So they're not like the ballistic missiles that have that trajectory, the parabolic trajectory. These are hypersonic aeroballistic missiles, so slightly different. They'll be different from, say, the Iskander-M that are fired up and come down. And know what Iskander-M is used as well. Now, generally speaking, when they are sent at Kiev, the interception rates are better. So if most of them are sent at Kiev, I wonder what the interception rates are looking like. Let's have a look. So my prediction would be, I haven't actually looked carefully at these stats. In fact, yeah, we do have this. So you've got 449 cents and you've got 419 taken out. So for 449 and only 30 getting through, and that includes missiles. And when you've had 18 missiles sent, that is good news. That is good. That is 30 out of 449. So again, when they send them at Kiev, that's where Kiev have the best air defenses, and you always get a better interception rate. There you go. So 405 out of 430. So 25 drones get through. Now, normally we get 25 drones on a night when there's 130 sent. In fact, it's been up around 30 recently. In fact, we had a night the other night when there was 50 odd, and there was the interception rate was less than 50%. That was because they were sending it to the front line, places like Odessa. They find it more difficult to shoot down because they send them at Odessa. They all circulate over the Black Sea until they're all there. Right, you send 1 or 2, 3 or 4, 1 or 2, 3 or 4, 5, and they all go over towards Odessa, but they don't strike in that order. They then amass over the Black Sea until you've got like 30 drones, and then they all go, and then we're going to hit Odessa, and then it overwhelms the air defense, so you get a less interception rate. So here you got 430 drones sent, 405 taken out. That's pretty good. 3 Kinzhaus, so these are really difficult missiles to shoot down, aeroballistic missiles, and yet 2 of them were taken out. That's excellent. You got a Zircon, relatively new anti-ship missile. 1 was sent, that was not taken out. Then you've got Caliber cruise missiles, 6 of them sent. All 6 were shot down. So they're relatively easy to shoot down. And you've seen fewer and fewer calibers used. It could be partly because they're not as effective, as in they do get shot down at a higher rate than the other missiles, but also because they generally are sent by these ships in the Black Sea. And I think they're struggling to load these onto the ships and fire them. Compared to the beginning of the war when they're firing them, when the Black Sea fleet was operating out of Sevastopol, they're just load them up really easily, bang the ships out into the bay, fire them off into Ukraine. Now they're all the way over in Novorossiysk, and I think the loading mechanism is either doesn't exist or struggles, or it certainly wasn't there for 6 months, I think, before they could get the loading mechanism to get the missiles onto the ships and the submarines. From Sevastopol, and then you had hits on Novorossiysk, where if I was the Ukrainians, that would be one of the things I'd be hitting. Is you hit that loading mechanism. Doesn't matter how many Caliber cruise missiles you're building, you can't fire those bad boys, whatever. So anyway, all 6 of the Caliber cruise missiles or Iskander-K, it's difficult to know what cruise missiles they often are. And then 6 out of 9 Iskander-M or KN-23, the North Korean ballistic missiles, were taken out. That's really good interception rate. 9 of these, very difficult missiles to take down. 6 of them were taken out. That is 2/3. 2/3 of both the Kinzhals and the Iskander-Ms, were all the ballistic missiles, 2/3 of them taken out. That's excellent, really, all things considered. So that is what happens when you concentrate so much on Kiev, I would say. Russia launched a large-scale missile and drone attack on Kiev early this morning, hitting residential areas and critical infrastructure. Around 30 residential buildings were damaged across the capital. That would be from a lot of those will be from interceptions, I would have thought. Police report 1 killed and 25 injured, including a pregnant woman and a child. So there's Kiev. A lot of focus there. Then south of Kiev as well. And then we have much closer to the front lines around... I don't know where that is up there, whether that's Liman direction, or is that further to the south. Then you've got probably Sloviansk, Kramatorsk, it could be, and that could be Konstantinivka. Then you've got Dnipro as well, around Dnipro being hit big time. Right. Okay. So we have lots of images. Russian forces struck Kiev with missiles and drones, killing 3 and wounding 26, including a pregnant woman and 2 children. Mayor Klitschko said, Vitaly Klitschko. Rescuers saved 84 people across 8 districts hit by debris and direct strikes. So there we have sort of residential buildings being hit, but you don't know. I assume those would be as a result of air defense or electronic warfare stopping or sending them awry, although the Russians are also perfectly capable of throwing missiles and drones directly into cities, to hit civilian infrastructure too. Kiev, first pictures of some of the devastation seen in so many districts there. Injury counts now up to 16. Actually, it's grown since then. So this is very early in the strikes on Kiev there. That's Tim White. The attack on Kiev continues, said Max 25 last night, as you had glowing skies and lots of smoke even in the early morning, I presume, rather than late night. Actually, no, that might have been earlier. That would have been earlier then. So, yeah, Anton Gerashenko said this morning, massive Russian attack on Kiev last night. Killed 3 and injured 26 more. Rescuers cannot get the bodies out of the rubble yet, so the death toll might grow. Among the injured are 2 kids and a pregnant woman. So, obviously horrific, isn't it? And there's just a big difference as to how Ukraine goes about doing their strikes. You're thinking, if we look at Novorossiysk in a second, it's going to be a cargo terminal, an oil terminal, and a surface-to-air missile system. It's like very strategic strikes, and you don't see these missiles and drones fly into residential buildings very often. Now, poor Andriy here lost both of his parents last night. It's really important to remember the real world implications of these strikes, the human implications. His 2 parents were killed instantly last night. They were killed by a Russian attack. Andriy's parents had moved from their village to Kiev. It's not the first time this kind of story has come out. They moved from their village to Kiev less than a week ago to spend the winter here. His father had cancer and Andriy had been taking care of him. Both parents were killed instantly. Quote, "It's impossible to even enter the apartment. The debris is up to your waist. The wall to the neighbors is destroyed. The upper slabs collapsed onto the bed. My mum died on the spot. My father was under the slab and most likely died on the spot as well," he stated. So sad day for him. And then Sumy was hit, I think, yesterday afternoon. Russian drones hit an industrial zone there. So that could be a key part of the military. I don't know. Or it could just be hitting the local industry to hammer the area economically. Officials say materials at the production site caught fire. So it's a fairly major fire going on in Sumy yesterday. And another image of that from a different angle. And then we move on to what the Ukrainians achieved last night. So although the Russian strike was really wide scale, the Ukrainians did a really good job of defending against it. And while there is destruction, I think the Ukrainians had a much better night strategically last night. So we're going to go on to Novorossiysk second. I dealt with that I reported that late last night, like 1:30 in the morning. I'm not getting enough sleep, that's for sure. But it was kind of breaking news, and I just finished my live on the Jeffrey Epstein scandal. Go and check that out. Good exposition, hopefully, of everything that's going on with that. So I reported Novorossiysk last night, but we'll go elsewhere first. After the drone attack, there is a partial blackout in occupied Donetsk. So the Ukrainians have drone attacked Donetsk. Drone threatened Moscow, Volgograd, Voronezh, Oriel, Rostov, Tambov, Kaluga, Tula, Kursk, Penza, Saratov, Lipetsk, Belgorod, Ryazan regions, and then republics of Moldavia, Kuban, Donetsk, and Crimea. So a lot of places targeted. In fact, last night, early in the evening, we heard that the Ukrainians were confirming the use of, and I did a video on this as well, Flamingo missiles. General Staff said that they used Flamingos, Bars, and Lyuti. Lyuti are long-range drones. Bars are like drone missiles, so this hybrid. And the Ukrainians said we'd use them the night before. So this is 2 nights ago in attacking. We are starting to see the period that we've been expecting for some time moment, and last night was another example. I released that video talking about that, and then Ukraine said, "Hold my beer, thank you very much. I'm going to prove to you exactly what you just said." Bosh, and they've used missiles, it appears, particularly on Novorossiysk. So it was a wide-scale attack last night, of which we only have information about Novorossiysk, really. Like a few other bits and pieces we'll go through, but there's an awful lot of information I'm sure will emerge today. So temporarily occupied Crimea is lit up tonight, said Jason J. Smart last night. Sevastopol, Simferopol, Feodosia report explosions. Russia calls it air defense. Locals call it fear. Ukraine is erasing Russian control one strike at a time. The peninsula is slipping from Putin's hands. Now, I know that's very rhetorical, but actually, I broadly think that is what's happening. It's a real systematic approach to Crimea. Now, explosions, says no reports, were heard in the village of Ojdozhnikidze near the Tepe Oba Ridge in occupied Crimea, where radar stations are located under protective domes. The cause and extent of the damage remain unclear. So that was reported yesterday afternoon. So not necessarily from last night, but again, that there are reports that the radars are continuing to be systematically taken out in Crimea, which acts as a snowball effect. So the less able you are to acquire drones and missiles and take them out with air defense, because you've got the radars taken out in the air defense, then the more able you are as Ukraine to strike these targets. And eventually, I mean, pretty much, I wonder if it's now, but certainly very soon, it's going to be proper open season, because although we've seen proof that the Russians have been bringing in air defenses to replace ones that they've lost. So there's a Panzer S1 that was seen crossing the bridge the other day. I reported on that. So they're trying to bring in things to keep that air defense going in Crimea. They are just going to be taken out similarly. And it is, I mean, Crimea will be untenable, properly untenable for continued Russian presence there, I think, if it continues with this trajectory. So last night, Ukrainian unmanned systems forces, is 2 nights ago, I have to admit, drone operators struck the Morsky Neftanoi terminal in Feodosia. So this is a third video we've seen similar to this, and a storage and maintenance base in Russian Orient of 4 Russian Orion strike reconnaissance drones in Kirovska. So this is what was talked about earlier. Now, those Orion drones are really useful. They're like the Reaper drones. Taking them out, very good. But we've seen a bunch of videos of these sort of oil depots being hit. And this one sees the massive tank here, the biggest one there, be hit. We don't have any subsequent video evidence of the damage, any kind of battle damage assessment, because even this second drone that goes in, I can't see any proof of the first drone having hit already. So normally you can see like something on fire already and a second drone goes in. So I don't quite know, how successful these strikes were, but they're pretty capable drones. I think they're probably the Beaver drones, maybe the FP2 drones. It's the FP1, FP2 drones, with their 105 kilogram warhead. I don't know. However, there were talks of lots of strikes on Crimea, and that was what I've just shown you is 2 nights ago. There was then, everything that happened last night that we just don't yet have information on. I'm a little bit earlier than I normally would be, so they might not have enough info for you yet. Here we see a Ukrainian drone that looks very like a Shahed drone go down and strike supposedly a Russian soldier accumulation in Kursk region. So all over the shot, the Ukrainians are active. But of course, this kind of activity is what the Russians do also routinely. So, and then Tim White here saying, I've been investigating, and I think this probably goes down as Russia on fire, hashtag Russia on fire. I'm not sure. I've put it in the strikes, but it could just be a careless smoker rather than a Ukrainian hit. The video shows a fire at the massive chemical company Nizhnekamsk Neftekim in Russia's Republic of Tatarstan. However, I couldn't find drones or missiles in the area. It looks like this fire is at Tatneft's plant, which is actually a site for repairing and modernizing petrochemical and energy industry facilities. In a country with poor health and safety checks, accidents are quite common. Yeah, but I mean, it's a significant fire going off at another petrochemical plant, and they've been definitely targeting petrochemical plants. So I don't know. Additional footage has emerged from the fire at the petrochemical plant in Nizhnekamsk, Russia. The scale of the blaze appears significant. So that's something else that has happened. Explosions and fire being reported at an oil refinery in Nizhnekamsk, Russia. The cause and extent of the damage still being clarified. So that was the original claim. I don't know if it was an oil refinery or just a petrochemical plant, or whether that's one and the same thing. And then you have Donetsk metallurgical plant was hit last night. Lots of smoke over that general area. 3 distinct explosions by the look of it, at least there. Yet to hear of any more detail. And then Tatarstan, the village of Vysokaya Gora, reports a serious accident on the power line. Part of the settlement was left without electricity and water. Areas probably powered by the 500 kilovolt Kinderi substation, which is key to the region. That might have been hit, but we're unsure. What else? Ukrainian forces struck a Russian base for Orion strike reconnaissance, as we heard in drones in occupied Crimea. Commander Robert Brovdy, or Magyar, said the raid near Kurovska or Kurovskoye, depending, targeted the drones capable of carrying bombs and flying up to 24 hours at 7,500 meters. Like I said, similar to those MQ-9 Reaper drones. So then we have the biggest news, and there's lots more news to come out, of course, I think, if those maps are anything near correct, of how many drones the Ukrainians were throwing into Russian airspace, something like that. If that is correct, then we're going to see a lot more information. We're going to go to Novorossiysk now, which is on the Black Sea, not too far from the Kerch Strait. The Black Sea fleet was moved from Sevastopol to Novorossiysk. Problem for Novorossiysk for the Russians is it's not a deep sea port in the same way as Sevastopol is. I've told you many times before, but let's just remind you, Sevastopol is a brilliant port to for the Russians to have control of, because it's just huge. It's got a load of dry docks. It's got loads of places to moor. It's well defendable. It's kind of like an estuary type thing where it's very easy to put a boom across and protect it. And it's got all the facilities they need. It's a deep sea port, so they can moor all their ships and submarines up at jetties and whatnot. With Novorossiysk, it's not nearly as big, and it's open. And actually, the ships have to moor out here. And they can't moor it in the port, and that means it's just simply not as good of a port for the Russians. This was hit last night big time. Okay, so we hear that there were basically 3 areas of big explosions. Here the claim is second target was hit was a barracks. Actually, that might have been a surface-to-air missile system. Here's an oil terminal that was hit on the right-hand side. And indeed, as Tendar says here, visual confirmation that the oil facilities in Novorossiysk have been successfully hit. Coordinates there. This is also an endpoint for Russian pipelines, making it practically the worst spot for a missile strike for the Russians. So it's the Shikaris oil transshipment terminal. It's big, flammable, and located just across the bay from Novorossiysk, adjacent to the naval base that currently hosts most of Russia's Black Sea fleet. Okay, so we go back to the map. You've got I think we're talking, yeah, it's much closer in there. So it's not going all the way out to here where there are other places out there, but it's this area here that you're talking about, which I think there are further back. Is it? Yeah, you've got all sorts of infrastructure around there. Oh, it's further back here. You've got a whole depot right back there. I don't think that was hit, but anyway, we do have firms data. So here's the firm status to suggest there were multiple fires going. So, okay, as you can see, big fires erupting in actually 4 separate places, not 3. I understand that this is probably a surface-to-air missiles site, and it could well be an entire battery. It could well be some ammunition as well that's gone bang. We have the oil transshipment terminal there, which is very significant. You take that out. If that fire is as big as it looks, then that could knock out the transshipment for oil, which means oil exports for the Black Sea are done for. Because Tuapse was closed down effectively, because that was hit. Remember, Tuapse is just down the road here. Down here, that's Tuapse. That was hit with both USVs and potentially some claiming Flamingo missiles hit that. That apparently is not exporting at the moment. So if this has happened at Novorossiysk, it could be that the Black Sea oil export has now just been done for, at least for the time being. You've got cargo points here being hit. So that's the cargo transshipment infrastructure. And then something back here. If we look at that on the map, let's go back up to Novorossiysk and have a look to see what the facility was that was hit, that was on fire. So you've got it coming down from there just by this one. So that looks like this area here, which, looks like, yeah, certainly port infrastructure. I don't know whether that is, you've got three, are they cranes there? Are they chimneys? And you've got some other infrastructure back here. So not 100% sure what that is, but it's obviously fairly critical. And also the cargo terminal there being here, and then the oil transshipment over here being absolutely hammered by the looks of it, as we can see from, the large firms data area there. Okay, so just some really, I would say, impressive, destructive. I mean, it's horrific, isn't it, really? But this is war, and what you want is Ukraine to be able to do this to the Russians so that the Russians stop the war. And that's a big bang. That is a very big bang. Now, I think that might have been the one down here, but I'm not 100% sure, to be honest. There's just a huge explosion you can see here from someone's apartment. A mushroom cloud has developed over the Russian barracks in Novorossiysk. It's very likely missile fuel burning from the destroyed Russian air defense battery, like the S-300, S-400 tasked to shield the city. So again, just like Crimea, you take out the S-300, S-400 defense system. So this is down in the south area. Here, then it's less able to defend itself, which means now going forward, Ukraine can throw even more missiles and drones. I would be very interested to see if Ukraine try and hit it again tonight. So that is being geolocated. This is the S-300, S-400 system, and this is, but I can't tell how old this is. So this is a full battery there, all right next to each other. So you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, maybe 7 launches, maybe 8. I don't know. You got all the launches there, probably the radar system, the fire control center. If that was still in place, there is no surprise that it went big bang, because that's a lot of equipment and no doubt ammunition as well. Here is, I don't know if this is the same place. Spectacular explosion in Novorossiysk is consistent with an air defense system being hit, S-400 missiles being destroyed by a single drone or missile, who knows. And this will wipe out the launcher. Russia cannot currently make air defense as quickly as it is losing them. So this is a significant blow. I mean, this kind of the stuff coming down that looks like almost like phosphorus coming down is, I think, a telltale sign that that was an air defense system that was hit, and you've got some cook-off of the ammunition. Some people saying that it might have been hit. Ukraine reportedly hit a Russian military base and a caliber ammo depot. That might have been eventually what was thought to be the S-300, S-400. It'd be great if they'd hit both. Strikes also hit the Sheshkaris oil terminal, one of Russia's key Black Sea export hubs. As Moscow targets homes, Ukraine is hitting the war machine. So the video you can see there that was turned on its side is the believed to be the oil depot there going up in flames. And you can see it from across the bay here. Oil depot is on fire. There's quite a width of fire going on there. And that goes back to the firm's data, to sort of confirming the firm's data, that the width of that fire is pretty significant compared to some of the other fires there. So that is the oil export terminal near the port of Novorossiysk. The Sheshkaris terminal is the terminus of Transneft's pipelines. It's the strategically important hub for the export of Russian oil and petroleum products across the Black Sea. Indeed, Anton Gerashenko says it is one of the largest oil loading complexes for transshipment of oil and oil products in the south of the Russian Federation. So outside of sort of Ust-Luga, which is already operating at, say, 50% capacity, or at least that's the last I heard. I don't know if they've improved that since, because of hits there in St. Petersburg area. Now you've got hits down on the Black Sea. So Russian oil terminal at the port struck by Ukraine on the Black Sea. Igor Sushko has a screen grab. Oh no, actually, this is the video of big, and that certainly looks like oil, because that's a continual burning. That's not like cook off or anything. That definitely appears to be oil depots and or pipelines going up in flames. Here are other images of the destruction from across the bay. It looks pretty significant. Another video here, the Chernomor Transneft oil terminal there at Sheshkaris, 300 to 400 kilometers from the front. It's a key export node that has been hit. And then the latest we hear from Special Kherson Cat is it is actually targeted by long Neptune cruise missiles, and not Flamingos. I mean, there's probably with drones as well. So it'll be a mixture of stuff, but long Neptunes were involved. Zelensky said tonight our warriors successfully used long Neptunes on designated targets on Russian territory. Ukrainian missiles are given more tangible and accurate results every month. That's really interesting. So he's claiming the accuracy is improved, and that's pretty much what was claimed by Sursky yesterday, that the effectiveness of these missiles has been improved. So I'm just okay. It looks like Russia's also hit Chornomorsk, which is a Black Sea port on the Ukrainian side of things, south of Odessa. 2 have died and 7 have been injured. I think, and that looks like a morning strike. So it looks like the Russians are getting, I think, revenge for. I was going to talk about this actually. That what happens now, what will no doubt happen, is Novorossiysk has been absolutely shellacked. Russia will want this not to be a PR win, or as well as a strategic win for Ukraine. So they will be looking for revenge, is how Russia normally operates. Witnesses in Chornomorsk say the Russian Shahed landed right on a car selling potatoes in a market area. To anyone normal, it's incomprehensible, but Russia is not normal. The town square, store facades, private transport, and a nearby college were also damaged. So what else? Meanwhile, Russia's defense ministry claims it shot down 216 drones, and it lists them 66 over Krasnodar Krai. So that's the area we've just been talking about, really. That's Novorossiysk, 45 over Saratov, 19 over Crimea, 8 over Volgograd. Then you've got 7, 4, 3, 2, 1, Rostov, Belgorod, Tambov, Bryansk, Voronezh, Nizhny Novgorod, Orenburg, 59 over the waters of the Black Sea. So interesting claims there. I mean, that shows how widespread Ukraine's attack was last night. Here, Long Neptune, a very big difference from the USPU 360 launcher. We already know the military industrial complex is working. Hope they scale up missile production, says Exile Nova. Yep, let's hope so. And this is exactly what I've been talking about previously. That looks like an air defense shoot down of a missile over Kiev, or a drone over Kiev, not sure. That's supposedly Long Neptune missiles being launched towards Novorossiysk here. So we've actually got now footage of missiles. That is, yeah, it's all sort of looking better for Ukraine in terms of, if they can use these sorts of weapons on a nightly basis, then that's really good news. Interesting. Someone is comparing the old and the new launcher for the Long Neptune here. For point of interest, I guess. So yeah, cruise missiles, Long Neptune cruise missiles were used at least last night. Interesting. Right. Okay. Just to finish everything up, it's been a long one. Other bits and pieces. Russia's preparing for a protracted war, viewing Ukraine as part of its global confrontation, according to Ukrainian Foreign Intelligence Service. Putin has identified 4 key objectives: total control over the Russian people and a maximum increase in weapon production, building a global anti-Western axis that includes Iran, North Korea, China, and regimes unfriendly to the West in Africa and Asia, preparing for an offensive action against Europe, destabilizing the world, fueling conflicts such as the wars in the Middle East and Africa. So that's what the Ukrainian Foreign Ministry has said, or the intelligence have said, and I would completely agree with that. Friedrich Merz, the German Chancellor, has asked Zelensky to reduce the outflow of young Ukrainian men to Germany. I presume these aren't refugees, but actually young men that are going with the change of the rules that meant that you're not banned completely from leaving the country. And the problem is loads of people are just flooded into Germany, and the Germans are saying, hang on, mate, can you hang on a second here and just stop this from happening? But it's a massive problem for recruitment going forward for the armed forces. Following a phone call with Zelensky, Merz said that young Ukrainian men should remain, quote, to serve in their own country. So that is that's interesting. And I'm going to play you this just to end off the video. So the caption here is Laver, I don't know, the dog with prosthetic forelegs. So the dog has been given prosthetics. Obviously, I think lost its legs in probably a bomb or drone attack. Inspires and supports Ukrainian defenders who themselves are undergoing rehabilitation at the Titanovy Center. So let's just have a bit of positivity here with a dog who's happy with life, even though it is, minus a couple of legs at the front there.
У нас сьогодні Михайло Філоненко
Озерний пес.
приїхав на протезування і реабілітацію.
Та все, тихо.
Краса.
Та тихо. Який гіперактивний.
Бачиш, який у тебе?
So that's lovely. Supporting people who have themselves lost their arms and limbs and whatnot. Good stuff. Well, look, thank you so much. Take care. I have to shoot off now to the West Country to watch about a gazillion bands over 3 days. Not that many, but a few bands that I absolutely love. So I'm looking forward to that, but I will try and get you as much information as I possibly can. There might be a lot of YouTube shorts of me surrounded by some very loud music. I don't know. You have to deal with it. It is what it is. Take care. Speak to you soon. All the best.